Lesson 6, Unit 3. The Lessons Learned session. Lessons learned is defined as the learning gained from the process of performing the project. During the closing phase, it is important to conduct a lessons learned session that will include participation of key stakeholders. This is an opportunity to capture the experiences earned in the project and then share them with the rest of the organization. Here are some steps you can take to conduct an effective lessons learned session. You need to organize the session well in advance with an agenda and the objectives of the session. You need to decide who will facilitate the session. If you have some funds, you should definitely look for an external facilitator. At the end of the session, collect and organize all the lessons identified in the session. Share the final document in a central, easy-to-access repository, and then communicate and disseminate the lessons learned to other projects in the organization. Here are some steps to help you organize the session. The first decision is to determine who will participate. It is important to include key stakeholders that can contribute to the session with their own perspective. You also need to have a clear and simple understanding of the purpose and the outcomes of this session. You also need to identify the information that participants will need to read before the session. This is project information that will help them remember some of the key events that happen in the project. The information can include the project charter, the schedule and budget reports, the issue log, the risk matrix, the change control log, and the project midterm evaluation report. With that information, you then need to create the agenda. You will need to make sure that the purpose is clear and that the outcomes are well defined. You also need to set some basic meeting rules. In the agenda, include that there will be an opportunity to highlight the project performance. This helps ensure that the session will not focus on identifying only what went wrong, but also identify what went right. Include the approach for discussion the issues in the project and the time for the discussion of ideas and recommendations. The rules for the session need to be clear and make them visible during the session so that everybody understands them. The rules should include the need to be open and honest. This is not only a time for everybody to be open about what happened, but also to be honest about the realities of what happened during the project. No finger pointing or assigning blame. The focus should be on finding what can be done to avoid it in the future. Make sure that everybody understands that there must be courtesy and respect while others are speaking so that everybody has a chance to speak. All feedback is valid. It doesn't matter if it is small or doesn't seem significant at the moment. Everything needs to be captured. Everybody has a voice, and the facilitator needs to make sure that everyone has an opportunity to speak, to raise their opinions, and share their experience of the project. When all participants have an opportunity to speak, they will all feel involved and motivated to contribute to the session. Here are some questions that can help you manage the session. The first one is to know what went well in the project that can be repeated in the future. Then, what went amiss? What was wrong that needs to be avoided in the future? What would you do different the next time? What are your insights or personal observations that could help others in a similar situation or in a future project? Then, what topics were not covered that should be discussed? You can include a list of questions in the documents you send before the session so that participants know what to expect. One technique that is especially useful is that when people are answering those questions, they write it down on colored papers. Each color can represent a specific category that you define at the beginning of the session. And when people start answering those questions, they write them down, take turns to speak, and then place it on the board. By the end of the session, you will have a complete view of all the lessons of the project. There is also a way to visualize the answers so that people can look at what other people are writing, and that could help avoid some duplicate items. But also by reading some of the answers, people can remember something that happened in the past and they can bring in other ideas or suggestions that will be part of the document of lessons learned. Here are some of the project management areas that you can use to review in your session. The core and support processes management plans that deal with the scope, budget, stakeholders, and team management. You can also discuss the phases of the project, especially the planning, implementation, and monitoring phases. You can discuss or conflict issue management and project communications. Another area to consider is project leadership, not only from the project manager, but also from the steering committee or senior management. Project support is another interesting area to include in the session. This is the support received from the administrative units such as finance, procurement, and human resources. The use of tools and methods in the project is also an area you can use to discover lessons, and you can leave a space for other areas that may be specific to the type of project. Here are some tips that will help you during the lessons learned. Include all experiences, whether they're positive or negative. This is not a monument to say that everything was right on the project. Every project has problems, so it's important that you also include the negative aspects, because that is where you learn the most. Obtain feedback as quickly as possible before people forget. Don't wait too long to conduct a session. Try to get it in the early stages of the closing phase while your team is still available and they have the time to participate. Document the lessons learned throughout the project. Don't just wait until the end of the project to have the session. It is good practice to conduct brief lessons learned sessions at specific milestones. Lessons learned at the end of the project will only help future projects, but smaller lessons learned sessions during the life of the project will help the project while it is still running. Make the lessons accessible to other projects. All that experience that was gained by the project is an asset, like a currency that other teams will be able to use to improve their projects. Once the session is complete and you have a lessons learned document, it is now time to share it. One way to do it is to have a knowledge sharing session. This is an opportunity to share the lessons learned with people in your organization. In this session, the team will present the lessons learned with aid of slides, videos, pictures, and other visuals. Invite stakeholders and team members from other projects within your organization. It is up to you to define who is going to be coming to the session, but the idea is that you invite people who will benefit from the lessons learned in the project. Present both successes and failures and what the team learned from them. Present the instances when the project had a challenge, but the team was able to find a solution to the problem. After the session, find other opportunities where you can distribute copies of the document, put it on websites, on the organizational knowledge sharing site, share it with online communities, project management associations, or groups that you are part that will benefit from the lessons learned.